So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna attempt to make this in one piece, and if I fail miserably, then I'll just make it in two. So let's get it to work. So what I need to do is figure out how far back I need to go. I'm going to cut it out, and then how far forwards it's really bad. So I think it's bad till about here. I'm going to get some protection on, and we're going to get this area cleaned up. We'll get this cut out and a new piece put in place. So we'll fabricate one first. A lot of people have reached out to me recently and asked me what the mask was that I wore, the respirator that I got from Harbor Freight. I want to show you guys, this is it. Obviously, I'm not sponsored by Harbor Freight. I don't know that anybody is. This is the brand, it's Western Safety. It comes with a bunch of extra filters too, so that's really good. Comes with ear plugs on a string. I just removed them. Those long cords like that, kind of dangerous, even though maybe it'll hang behind your head. And then also comes with two straps. I guess you could probably leave both straps on. It's 25 bucks. This one's brand new. I just recently bought it a couple weeks ago and just gonna open it up now. But that's the brand. It's Western Safety. You can pull the filters out. You can wash this mask. You can reuse it. Little black plastic piece here, and these black pieces inside. These unthread. You undo them. You put a new filter in, and then you just pinch it back together, and it stays there. The usability of this mask, the flexibility of it, being able to wear it underneath your welding helmet, your grinding helmet. You got earplugs, ear protection, whatever the case. It's just really versatile. And it's hard to find products that work together like that, and it's actually, you know, like, and still be comfortable. So I just want to show everybody that. So I've had a lot of people reach out and ask. The only downfall is your glasses fog up. So, and what I just said 5 minutes ago, it's going to be a 12-inch piece from here to here. Well, it's grown. It's now this big. So it's a 2-foot piece. All right, well, this has escalated. As usual, this entire top is just rusted out, it's rotted. Pinholes all the way down. The majority of it goes from here to here. All of it goes from there to here. I wish I had another one of these panels. All right, so I'm using my Trulers. You guys have seen me use these before and talk about these in the past. A magnetic ruler, a great tool if you don't have any, certainly worth the investment. So I'm gonna get this cut out, and yeah, that's what we're doing. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'll get this cleaned up a little bit more now that I know exactly what I'm working with, and then we'll get to work on starting to fabricate a patch panel. I don't exactly know how I'm going to do it yet. I may end up having to make it in two pieces, just because it's just sometimes that's just what you have to do. Alright guys, well I got this all cleaned up best I can. Oh, I've got my glasses. So this is the area that I just removed. You can see the width of where this rolls down, where it would go up against the glass. It's about like 1.25 inches wide. See, like this area here is about 1.25 inches. On the back window, it's probably only 3/4 of an inch. So it's quite a bit different. So this isn't really, I don't think, anything that I can make out of that panel. So again, what I think I'm gonna end up having to do is probably make it from scratch, but I think I may end up making it in 2 pieces. I'm gonna try to make this in 1 piece. And I'm gonna challenge myself because I'm not the best metal fabricator, but I like a challenge. So I'm gonna give it the old college try. How's that? That's not too bad. All right, get some wood, some mouse nests, all types of good stuff. Add that to the burn pile. All right, first things first, probably need to figure out how exactly it is I'm gonna make this template. I'm gonna break it down into the easiest steps. I know I need a 90-degree bend here, so we'll get this 90-degree bend cut first. We'll get this measurement laid out. So I know I need a 90-degree break, so that's easy enough. We'll do that on the metal break. And then it's rolling this edge. So we have to roll this edge, and then also it kind of goes at a radius. That's gonna be the tough part. I'm just trying to figure out exactly the best way to go about building this panel. So this is kind of a tough piece of metal to create if you don't have all the right tools, and I don't know that I do, you know? I know it's kind of tough to see, but you can see this 90-degree bend here right on this outside edge, or the inside edge. So we got flat here, a vertical, and then flat again, and then it starts to roll, but it's about 3/4 of an inch here, and it's probably about 1.25 inches here, so it gets fatter. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with the piece of metal that I have now and create this half first. So I'm gonna do the flat, the vertical, and then the flat, and then I'm gonna tip this edge, I'm gonna roll this edge over. That piece of metal is a little bit longer, so I'm gonna start with that piece of metal, and I'll trim it down when it comes time. Alright, I'm gonna show you guys what I'm doing. So hopefully you can see some of these Sharpie marks. I have my first 1/2 inch, which is this flat section here. My second line is just over 3/8, between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. I gave myself a little bit of material to roll, so I'll end up with a 3/8 vertical. That is this section here, so that's number 2. So you got 1, 2, that's number 2 here. Number 3 is this section here, so this is number 3. So I have this roll here, so from this edge here, roll all the way up to here, that's 1 1/8 inches. And the center of the panel from here to here is 1 3/8 inches. And then you go back down to 1 1/8 inches. So what I did was I measured 1 1/8 inches here. So this would be number 3. So this is 1 1/8 inches. This is 1 1/8 inches. So this is my 1 1/8 inches mark. This is my 1 3/8 inches mark. So this is where my center is. Then I measured halfway in between the 2 lines. So halfway in between 1 1/8 inches, halfway in between 1 3/8 inches, I have 1 1/4 inches. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this panel and I'm gonna set it right in the crux of my vise. And I'm gonna recreate that arc to go from 1 1/8 inches to 1 3/8 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flex. I'm gonna just flex my ruler. So I'm gonna line it up with my 1 1/8 inches mark on my vise. Make sure this panel is up right up against it. Then I'm gonna just connect it to my 1 1/8 inches mark on my end of the panel. And then I'm just gonna flex my ruler until the center of my ruler meets my 1 3/8 inches mark. And I'm gonna make a line. So now you can see I have a smooth radius here. It goes from 1 1/8 inches to 1 1/4 inches. 1 3/8 inches down to 1 1/4 inches, back down to 1 1/8 inches. Just gonna remove some of these marks that I don't need now, so I don't get confused. All right, so let's get this. Let's get that in the break, and we'll get this all bent up. Just double checking, making sure. So I'm gonna have flat, vertical, flat. All right, let's get this bent. Alright, so this is what we have so far. So now what we need to do is create this radius here. Alright everyone, I am making a mess of all types of metal. Trying to figure out exactly how I can do this patch panel. So I'm trying to recreate this profile. So you can see this is where the window channel would go up into. This is where it would attach to the wood on the top. It's got to go across, down, and then it's got to sweep up. Problem is it's thinner here than it is here. It's thicker here. So what I ended up figuring out is I need to make the panel, or I need to make this radius all one width. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then slice this here right above this top break, and then I'm going to bend it in, cut it off, and then weld it here and here, because there's no way I can really create the smaller piece, the larger, and then smaller without making it in two separate pieces. I started creating this piece, this little panel here. If I were to take this and hold it like that, you know, it's kind of hard to see, and then hold this like that, essentially I'm creating the same profile, and then hopefully I'll be able to create this 90-degree flange after the fact, and then I'll be able to cut this down as needed. Alright, so I'm still messing around with this panel with all my little test pieces here that I'm kind of eyeballing things up with. So as you guys know, I'm just kind of bumping it with the metal brake. I think I'm pretty close now. And again, I'm gonna make it the full width of the thickest part, because otherwise I'll need to add material, and I'd rather remove material than add it, or than need to add it. Just check this measurement to make sure. So let me show you guys where I'm at. So as you guys know, this is the piece I'm trying to create. I cut this down out of the scrap piece. Like, here's the other part here. So this edge here is the outer edge. This would be the side of the car, and then this is where the detail for the window is, and then it sweeps underneath. I need to be 1 3/8 the total thickness of this. So I have my mark here, which is roughly that, I do believe. So I'm going to get this 90-degree bend broke, and then somewhat set in the car. An accurate measurement here. I think I'm pretty close. So I did another couple test panels, and what I realized is that I have no way to create this next bend. And what that next bend is this little flange here where the wood tacks to. Because of, you know, your limitations with things, I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch up, and I'm just going to cut it off, and then I'm going to just create a 90-degree flange, and then I'll tack weld it to the back edge of that to give me my nailer or the spot to adhesive the window to. And then what I'm going to end up doing is I need to create a radius here on this surface here. So in order to do that, I need to pie cut this here, and I need to start bringing them in. So I need to shrink the ends in and leave the middle at my 1 3/8. So I need to go down to about 1 inch on this end roughly, and 1 inch on this end. And then that should give me my outside radius of the shape of the car. The inside will stay flat. At that point, I'll get it tacked in place. I'll get my little flange on the backside welded on. And then the only other thing that I'm gonna probably end up needing to do is there's a kind of a radius on the back edge of the top of the window. It starts to radius down to the top right corner, and then also on the front edge, on the front left corner of the window opening. This bead will start to radius down. I think what I'm probably going to end up having to do is make a cut somewhere and start to create that radius, and then I'll just have to weld it back up, because there's no other way for me to really do it, I don't think. All right, let me get this measured out, get this cut where I need to, and then get a flange broke, and then get it tack welded onto this, and we'll get it fit on the car. It needs to be a 1/2 inch. Let me get this cleaned up, and I'll just use this good edge and get that broke into a 90, and then tack welded onto there. Alright, so cut this cut down real quick. This needs to be an inch, a half inch up, and a half inch over. Something like that. So I spent a lot of time and did a bunch of pieces and panels, and no matter what I did, I couldn't make that happen in one piece. So that's when I just came to the realization that it just has to be two. And it's fine, it's really not going to make any difference. Alright, let me get this cleaned up real quick, and we'll get this tacked in place. Alright guys, I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I just clamped this piece of metal in my brake just for now on that 90-degree flange, just so I had something to hold it. And I have my half-inch marks measured out on the bottom of the flange where I need to make my radius cut so I can create the radius. So I need to essentially eliminate almost a half an inch. So I'm just gonna take a couple small vice grips, just clamp those on the metal where my marks are, and then I'm gonna bend my straight edge to my furthest point. It's essentially the same thing I did with my vise earlier. I just need to create that radius. Now what I need to do is I have a little pie shape I need to remove here, and a pie shape I need to remove here. Once that's done, this inside piece will stay in place and this edge will fold in, create a radius, I hope. So I'm going to get to cutting with the cutoff wheel. Alright, now you can see the spaces that I relieved, these little triangles here. Now these are just going to close in, and it's going to create that outside radius. Alright, so what I want to do now is I just want to check the radius of this panel now, make sure it's good. So now what the problem is this area here, this flat area, is too wide. So I actually have to narrow it down about 3/8 of an inch from what I recall. I essentially just have to cut this whole lip. End up having to make 2 cuts, I guess, which kind of stinks. But that's how I got to do it, so let me go put this up to the car and check it. Now no one makes this panel here, so anyone else that needs to do this in the future, you just have to do it yourself, figure it out. And that's all I'm doing at the moment. And go back to my brake. I'm gonna end up just using this as a clamp. I'm gonna get a straight edge. I'm gonna get this metal cleaned up real quick, and then I'm just gonna make a couple of marks, get that cut. Kind of fabricating on the fly, as I do a lot. Alright, so what I gotta do, my next step before I go any further with this panel is to figure out where the sweep starts. So what I'm gonna do, so I have it cut out. What I actually need to do is I actually need to cut out maybe just a touch more. But we're gonna go over onto the passenger side. That window's complete. So we're gonna transfer some measurements from the passenger side over onto not only my patch panel, but this area here, so I can figure out exactly where my radius needs to start, and then I'll transfer it over onto that, and then we'll get that piece of metal cut, so then I can start bending and shaping this profile, this edge of the window, the top edge of the window, and then hopefully I can get that piece final cut, put in place, and I'll probably have a little bit of a sliver of metal to add into here, but we'll figure it out. So what I have is I just have my straight edge here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find exactly where the sweep starts on the back edge of this window. So if I run my straight edge down, when I start to see daylight in between, like right here, in between the front edge and the sheet metal, I'd say right about there. I'd say right about there, roughly. So I'm holding my level plumb. Until I get it to that edge there. Alright, so I'm going to lock that down. So I'm going to go over and transfer that over onto the driver's side. Just to recap, I traveled down with my straight edge till I got to my flat spot where there was no space in between my straight edge and the metal. And then what I did is I just transferred that measurement over while holding this level and making sure my straight edge was plumb. This surface here, that mark there, and I just transferred it over onto the other side. Pretty simple. So now what I need to do is I need to, on the other side, on my piece of metal, a new metal. So now on this piece here, I need to figure out my measurement from the front edge back so I know where this is starting. And then I'll transfer it over onto my metal. I'll have to make a slice, figure out exactly where, and then I have to start. Somehow, I need to bend this radius down. I don't exactly know how I'm going to do that yet, because this probably isn't going to move very easy. It's just a tricky panel. I don't know that I have the right tools to be doing this, you know? Alright guys, so I'm still working on this. So I got this just piece of sheet metal here. I'm going to tuck it up in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this radius over onto this piece of sheet metal. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this outside edge around my mark. I know it's really tough to see, but you saw what I just did. I just traced that radius. Probably make this just a little bit smaller, doesn't need to be so big. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this out, clean this up on my sander. I'll get it, make sure that it's clean over here, make sure that it's lined up nice and good on this radius right up against the metal. And then I'm gonna transfer it over and get that other piece made. So let's get this trimmed down real quick and get this shaped up and see how it fits. Alright, so next thing I have is just this cheap Harbor Freight sander. It's like a 6-inch sanding disc, sanding belt combo. I don't really use it all that often, but this is a perfect scenario. What I want to do is, I just got this pretty close. I want to get this radius cleaned up nice and good. So I'll do that on my 6-inch disc here. That is about as good as it's going to get. If anything, it could probably just use a little bit in these edges here. Alright, I think we're good there, so I'm just going to make sure that I do the top and the back. Back, top. Alright, so let's go transfer it over onto the other side. So that right there is the arc that my window opening needs to go. This is the area here in question that I'm concerned about. Alright, still working on this here. So what I ended up doing was I relieved this area here, this section, because it was going too far back. So I ended up relieving that right at my mark that I made, my vertical line where the sweep starts. And then what I did was I removed this internal piece. See this piece that were welded? And I just made a couple of cuts just so I could kind of start the sweep process. So I really struggled through the process or the thought process on this particular panel. The reason why, I always assume when you look at a panel you can build it in one piece. But that realistically isn't always the case. This piece of metal is actually going to take me 3 separate pieces. So I'm going to have the main portion here, the flat portion with the bead, one section that rolls down under in one section. Then I have the channel where the glass is going to sit, which is essentially just a 1-inch piece of metal broke on a 90 degree. That's my second piece. And then my third piece is going to be this filler back here. where the radius curls down on the window opening. So I really struggled in the thought process thinking that I could make this entire piece out of one piece of metal. But in reality, I was attempting to do something that was, with the tools that I have, essentially impossible. So as I had said, three separate pieces. So three separate pieces. So I have this piece here. This piece here I had to end up cutting and welding back on. The reason why is because I just made it too long, too wide rather. And then this is that 90-degree angle piece here. That is essentially the channel where my window, the glass will sit. So I have one piece, two piece, and then this will be a third part here. Like I said, I had to make some relief cuts to get this piece of metal to sweep down to fit the window opening. So now that that's basically all set, I just need to trim this down and get this fitted exactly in where it's going to go. It probably would have made sense for me to just source a piece, this section of window out. It would have made sense for me to do that and then just cut it in like I did on the back window, but I wanted to challenge myself, and in doing this, I've definitely learned a lot. I'm happy with the way it's coming out. It's taken me a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, I'm just gaining experience, practice and experience and confidence. Let's get this fitted up. I'll get it cut down to the right size and get this tacked in place. What I'm doing now is I'm just working across this weld seam here, getting this stitch welded. So once I get this all welded up, I'll get this sweep, make sure I get that all buttoned up good. I have my little template here that I'll use that I made from my passenger side. This is in the way at the moment, but I'll get that lined up, making sure this radius here is good. I'll get this little filler piece put back in, and then get these little slices welded up. And we'll keep moving forward. I got this little patch welded in place. I'm going to finish weld that, and then what I need to do is I need to get this bottom lip added back onto it that I already cut off, connect it down to here on the bottom of this radius, and then that'll be it. And then I just got to finish weld this bottom lip right here, grind it all down and clean it up, and then that's done. I really do need to get some better lights in the shop. It was a little low here. I could probably build that up with some weld and get that a little bit better, but the rest of it welded up nice, good fitment. Same thing on the back here, a little bit low here. This was the extra panel that I had to create. Sorry about that. This was the panel here that I had to add, and then obviously the radius there, but a lot better than what it was. So now what we need to do is the panel on the bottom. There's been a lot of work done to this car over the years. Whoever else owned it in the past kind of did what they did. And now I'm doing what I'm doing, just to try to save this old girl, you know? Alright, so I'm gonna move some things around, get the shop kind of organized a little bit, and then we'll get this thing figured out. So I'll show you guys what I'm working on. Actually, you can see it. See the tape? You can see the masking tape across the back of the car. Instead of me rebuilding the whole bottom of the car, not knowing exactly even how far it's supposed to come down because everything on the back of the car is missing, I figured I'm just going to go up to the highest point of the bad metal which is kind of on the end panels. This one needs a little bit of work here. I'm just going to cut a straight line. So I ended up measuring down from my belt line. I got my marks made, measured out, and then I just used some tape, kind of eyeballed it, and got a straight line. I'm just going to use my whiz wheel, and I'm just going to cut this off. Once I get this little issue figured out here over in the rear of the passenger side quarter, I'm going to bend up some 18 gauge sheet metal. I'm going to break it into a 90, and I'm going to use my shrinker, and I'm going to shrink it and get the shape of this lower rear panel. It'll actually be something with some structure and integrity, so it won't fold underneath, and it'll make sure that this isn't flopping or vibrating when the car's going down the road in the future. So I'm going to just remove this real quick, make a measurement, cut up, bend up a piece of sheet metal, and get that tacked in place just to give this rear panel some integrity. So it'll hopefully go pretty quick. Just gonna put my gloves. So what I ended up just doing was I ended up bending this. I ended up going 1.5 inches tall, 1/2 inch on the bottom. The 1/2 inch flange will make it a little bit easier to shape with my shrinker dies. A 1 inch thickness piece of metal is a little bit harder to shape with your shrinker or stretcher. Let's do a couple quick measurements, a couple quick transfer marks onto this panel where the shape of the rear panel is, just so I know to transfer them over onto this piece of metal. I'll show you guys where we're at. Now I don't know if this panel is exactly how it's supposed to be. I'm sure there's a couple of waves in it here and there, but after one round of shrinking, we've got a little bit more to do. So we got my center mark here. Alright, let's see where we're at now. There's a lot more curve to it now. Bondo or something up in here. So I went a little too far on the ends here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hammer these out and try to get it to stretch out without switching my dies out. Passenger side's really close, driver's side needs a little bit more. Getting closer. So what I'm going to end up having to do is clean all the metal on the back side of this piece of sheet metal. Alright, hopefully you guys can see. My battery ended up dying, but I got this all clamped on and welded. Did a bunch of little tack welds on the edges. I did some other tack welds on the inside across the top here, across the middle, and across this end. And then everywhere where there was exposed good metal, I welded in the middle. So what I need to do is just get that cleaned up, then I'm going to call this done. Like I said, there's kind of some iffy metal all around here where there was Bondo. Looks like the metal kind of rotted underneath the Bondo, but that'll be something the next guy can do. There's some thin spots here. But that cleans up the back of the car a lot without doing a ton of metal work, which is ideal. Now, let me get my protection on and I'll get this weld here all cleaned up, and then I'm going to call it a day after that. Alright everyone, that's going to be it for me for the day. It's Tuesday afternoon, a couple days passed after I got back from vacation. That was kind of over the course of 3 different days. Yesterday for about an hour, a little while before I left on vacation, and then obviously today, probably spent another couple hours on it. That was kind of a tricky patch to do. I thought I could make that patch in one piece. Clearly that wasn't the case. I don't have the tooling to do that. And if you're in a situation like that and you're struggling to make a piece in one piece, just try to break it down, I guess, and maybe try to make it in 2, 3, maybe 4 pieces. We're not the only ones that have to do it that way. Even the professionals have to do it that way, because not every piece can be made without some type of a stamping die or something like that. So if you have to make it by hand, maybe you have to make it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. Like I said, that was kind of an intricate, detailed piece, so it was kind of a lot going on. On the back of the car, you guys saw what I did. I just made a quick line, made some measurements down from some reference points on the belt line. I cut it off, and then I created a flange or a stiffening brace to brace up the back panel of this car. You can see here on the driver's side, this panel here is kind of flat, kind of rolls down and comes flat with this panel here. This one, not so much. It's all dented here. Dented on the bottom. There's definitely some work that needs to be done there. Essentially, this is what I was hoping to get done today in that side window, and I did. So really happy with the progress today, and I'm looking forward to getting this body off and getting to work on the radius rods. Thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, if these videos interest you and they make you happy and you like the cars that I'm working on, hit that subscribe button. I don't ask very often. I kind of want the channel to grow organically. I want the people that watch the channel that want to watch the channel. I don't want people to just like and subscribe because I ask people to. If you like these videos, if you like these cars that I'm building in particular, if you like the sedan, the way the project's going, the parts I'm using, and maybe some of my other projects that I have worked on in the past, or some that you know I'm going to be working on in the future, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. See you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.